A lot of people have asked me how my story begins, how I got involved in pro-life work, and it actually started right here. This used to be an abortion clinic in downtown Sacramento. It's not anymore. That abortion clinic closed down a while back, but when I was 11 years old, my dad took me with a group of men from our church to pray outside of this clinic. And there's an interesting thing in that no one had told me what abortion was. I hadn't even had the talk yet. And so I was bored. I think we were out here for like an hour with a small group of maybe 4 or 5 men in a little circle right here on this sidewalk. And they were praying about abortion, but I didn't understand the prayers. So I was bored, basically. But then a group across the street, I'll try to pan over here, a group across the street, a separate group from us, had brought graphic signs showing what abortion does to babies. And I saw those signs and I wasn't traumatized, I was just confused, and so I asked my parents later that day, what's up with the signs? And they told me what abortion was. And I remember having 3 distinct feelings. I remember feeling surprised. Like this was so, not even that abortion was legal, just that anyone would want to do that. It was so like outside of my cultural bubble, of conservative homeschoolers. I mean, we were in a church with big families. People had 8 to 12 kids sometimes. Like it was a very pro-family church, and so just the idea that anyone would want an abortion was a big surprise to me. It was, getting outside that cultural bubble. The second thing I felt was intense sadness, not anger, but sadness. And the third emotion I felt, I remember feeling this rising sense of, I'm going to have to stop that. Or I'm going to have to be part of a movement that tries to stop it. And so I immediately began reading. Dr. Frank Beckwith had just, I don't know if he had just, but he had put out a book called Politically Correct Death, his first philosophy book on abortion. I read that. I didn't understand half of it, but I read it and really enjoyed it. And then I got these tapes by this guy named Scott Klusendorf. Early Scott Klusendorf tapes back when he was at Hume Lake. And I would listen to those tapes over and over and over, 15, 20 times. I memorized his arguments. I memorized his jokes. People would ask me what I wanted to be when I grew up at 11 years old. And I would say, I'm going to be a pro-life speaker when I grow up. What I meant was I wanted to be Scott Klusendorf when I grew up. And so fast forward, just to summarize what happened then, I got involved in the Teens for Life group for a little while. They had a great impact on me. I ended up starting the Teens for Life group in Atlanta, Georgia when we moved there when I was 18. Led that for about 3 years, got hired by the state Right to Life group there, worked there for about 3 years before resigning and moving to Fresno. Worked for Right to Life in Central California for 6.5 years. A lot of people know me from the Life Report podcast that I hosted, did about 200 episodes of that before last year when I resigned so I could start Equal Rights Institute. An organization dedicated to training pro-life advocates to think clearly, reason honestly, and argue persuasively. So we use speaking, writing, and campus outreach to emphasize practical dialogue tips, relational apologetics, and rigorous philosophy. We're basically trying to help the pro-life movement to become more loving and thoughtful. And that's not a sufficient condition for ending abortion. I am no longer under the thought that I alone can end abortion. It would take a lot more than that. It's going to take a lot of things being in place. But I think this is one of them. I think the pro-life movement being more loving and thoughtful is a necessary but not sufficient condition for ending abortion. So this is the part that I'm going to try to play, and all these other people are going to play a role. And so that's my story. I'm so grateful for really pro-life parents and a pro-life church. And people like Scott Klusendorf and Steve Wagner and others who kind of spoke into my life and helped shape the way that I think about things. I've got my mission. I'm going to do what I said I was going to do 20 years ago. I'm going to be a pro-life speaker, and I'm going to be part of a movement, a wonderful movement that is going to try to stop this, that is going to try to stop the killing.